What if I told you that a 2,500-year-old text holds one of the most important secrets for dealing with risk in our world today? Yeah, forget all the complex algorithms and stock tips for a second. The key might just be hidden in a single ancient command. Okay, so here it is. This is from the book of Proverbs, chapter 20, verse 16, in its original Hebrew. And I know, at first glance, it looks totally indecipherable, right? Like some ancient artifact. But we're about to decode it, and trust me, what we're going to find is a shockingly relevant piece of financial advice.
And boom, here's the literal translation. It sounds harsh, doesn't it? Almost cruel. Take his garment. It really seems to be ordering this cold, unforgiving action against someone who just made a bad financial call.
But is that really what's going on here? That's the big mystery we're going to solve. How does this ancient, kind of brutal-sounding command actually translate into a super sophisticated strategy for you and me right here, right now?
Okay, so let's dive right in. To really get this proverb, we first have to get past that initial shock value and understand the language of the time.
So that key phrase, take his garment, it wasn't a literal command to, rip someone's shirt off their back. It was a common idiom, a fixed business expression that meant one thing: secure collateral. Think of it like how we might say, get it in writing. The focus isn't on the actual piece of paper, it's on the act of securing the deal. Same idea here.
Right. So with that crucial piece of context, you can start to see how this thing builds from a simple command into this really powerful principle of risk management. Once you understand the lingo, the true meaning just clicks into place.
So let's be super clear. This is not a guide for predatory lending. It's a manual for smart finance. It's not about punishing someone for making a mistake. It's about demanding financial discipline when you're about to enter a risky situation, specifically a deal that involves a stranger.
So who is this for exactly? Well, it's kind of a three-level warning. For the person thinking about co-signing for a stranger, it's a big red flag. For the community, it's a lesson in financial stability. But that command, that word, take, that is aimed squarely at the lender. It's talking to you. It's telling you how to protect your assets.
So the advice seems simple enough. When the deal involves someone you don't know, get collateral. Easy, right? But if it's that simple, why is it so incredibly hard for us to actually follow this advice? Well, the answer, it turns out, is a glitch in our own programming.
I mean, think about it. We have all been there. A friend of a friend needs a little loan, or an acquaintance has this can't-miss investment opportunity. Your gut might be screaming no, but something inside pushes you to say yes. Why does that happen?
It's what you'd call an evolutionary mismatch. Our brains are running on some seriously ancient software. We evolved in these small tribes where being generous and trusting each other, well, that was a survival tool. Helping someone without collateral was actually a pretty good bet back then. But that exact same instinct, it is a total disaster in today's huge anonymous markets.
And we can even pinpoint the culprit in our brains. It's a little region called the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, or VMPFC for short. This part of your brain is an absolute sucker for social connection. When someone asks you for a favor, the VMPFC just lights up, and its desire for empathy and keeping things friendly can literally shout down the more rational parts of your brain that are waving all the red flags. And on top of that, we are all walking around with something called optimism bias. There was a great study on this back in 2011, and it shows we are just hardwired to pay more attention to good news and kind of ignore bad news. We hear the promise of the deal, but we totally underestimate the very real chance of default. We just think, it'll all work out. And that wiring glitch, that deep-seated optimism, it isn't just a feeling. Oh no, it has cold, hard financial consequences that we can actually calculate. So banks use this pretty simple formula to measure risk, and it's called expected loss. It's basically the probability of default, so the chance the person won't pay you back, times your exposure, which is just how much you lent them, times the loss given default, which is the percentage of the money you'll lose if they do default. Now, this is where you see the power of that ancient proverb in black and white. A deal with a stranger that already has a high probability of default, but when you fail to take collateral, when you fail to take the garment, your loss given default just goes through the roof. I mean, look at that. You go from maybe losing 10% to losing almost everything. That, right there, is the math of a very bad deal. So the huge question is, how do we fight back? How do we override our brain's social programming and that pesky optimism bias to make the smart choice? Well, the proverb gives us the answer, and we can turn it into a modern, actionable plan.
It's a really simple if-then plan. If you're asked to back a deal with a stranger, then you kick a system into gear. First, you create a cooling-off period. Never, ever agree right there on the spot. Second, you make the decision objective. Demand a list of collateral. And third, you create a hard and fast rule. If the collateral doesn't meet your preset standard, the answer is an automatic no. No negotiation.
And why does this work? It's kind of genius, really. The delay gives that emotional rush from your VMPFC time to fade away. And the checklist? It takes the decision out of your biased brain and puts it on a piece of paper. You're replacing subjective feelings with objective facts, and that's how you short-circuit the glitch that leads to bad deals.
But we have to be super clear about something here. This ancient wisdom is a shield, not a sword. Its whole purpose is to enforce discipline and manage risk when things are uncertain. It is absolutely not a justification for predatory behavior or for exploiting vulnerable people by seizing their essential stuff. Context is everything.
So, let's end with this thought. The proverb talks about a stranger, but maybe the real stranger is that overly optimistic voice inside our own heads. You know, the one that ignores all the data and just says, it'll be fine. So the real question is, where in your life, in your finances, your career, maybe your projects, is that inner stranger convincing you to make a deal without taking the garment?